Last night on Checkpoint, we began an interview with Solid Energy CEO Tony King about a media statement the state-owned enterprise had made about Pike River. The statement was issued yesterday afternoon. It said, and I quote, "The Pike River mine unmanned exploration project is making good progress." So what progress and how good is it? Last night we began to discuss this with Tony King, but we ran out of time. Mr. King agreed to return to the subject on Checkpoint tonight. I spoke to him earlier this afternoon. So if the project is, quote, making good progress, when will the robot be going in?
We're just working through a detailed timeline for that. We haven't yet finalised the full scope of what is proposed, nor had that approved. And until we've done that and we've worked through with the manufacturer and drilling contractors the timing around that, we can't be definitive, but we would certainly like to have the job completed by Christmas.
Okay, the election is September 23rd. Do you think it will be prior to then?
I think it's unlikely because of the build time for the machine that we wish to use.
Okay, the build time. So does this machine not currently exist?
The particular sort of machine that we're looking at is somewhat modular, so we have to configure it for the particular size hole that we want to put it down and equip it with the sort of cameras and sensors and other things that are appropriate for this task, and so they are built to order rather than available off the shelf.
Who is the manufacturer?
It's an Australian firm, I believe.
Okay, you believe. Do you know who it is?
Yeah, I do. I'd rather not give their name out at this stage.
Why is that?
We have yet to finalise arrangements with them, and I think until we do, it's not appropriate to name them.
So you've yet to finalise arrangements. Does this actually exist as a contract?
No, there's nothing contracted yet. No, this is still at the assessment phase. We're working through the technical issues, the safety issues, the practical issues around it all. We've got a very clear concept of the sort of machine that is available that we believe will fit the requirements.
So you have a clear concept. You don't have a contract. You're unable to tell me the manufacturer's name, although it's clear that there is one that you were talking to. In other words, this is a theoretical exercise at the moment, isn't it? It's not actually happening as we speak.
Well, what we've been tasked with by the government is to conduct an assessment into the technical feasibility and safety of doing this unmanned exploration, and we are a good way through that assessment process, but we've not yet reached the end of it.
Yesterday on Checkpoint you said we're moving forward with this unmanned exploration project, which we think can provide some really useful answers to the family and potentially to investigators. How will it do that?
Well, there has long been speculation that some people may have been in the process of exiting the mine at the time of the explosion, or even tried to exit after the explosion and are in that part of the drift that hasn't yet been explored. Now, it is speculation. The Royal Commission, when they looked at the location of people, they identified only 2 people in the drift, and they both escaped, and everyone else in the mine. But without actually being able to inspect that area, we won't know for sure, and that is one way in which we might be able to provide some certainty to the families as to whether there is anyone there or not.
Will this robot have the capacity to retrieve material?
That is not the plan at present. It is it's primarily around obtaining video footage and inspecting what we can see as we travel through parts of the drift in the mine.
And how much area do you believe this robot will be able to cover?
The indications are that it can travel perhaps 100 metres from a point of insertion in any direction. So, from a single borehole we could inspect of the order of 200 metres of roadway. However, that is contingent on the roadway being open. There's no roof falls and not obstructed by debris. And we certainly know that at the far end of the drift there is a debris field. We don't know how far down the drift that extends though.
So one borehole, you can go 100 metres in one direction and 100 metres in another direction?
That's correct.
So will there be more than one borehole?
In order to look at that unexplored part of the drift, we will need 2 or 3 boreholes, we believe.
So how long will it take to do that work?
I don't have that information, but you're probably talking a few weeks per borehole.
This sounds to the families like a holding pattern. It sounds to the families like the government driving Solid Energy to do something which actually isn't really something, which may actually not reveal anything, and which may only give them more footage inside the mine that doesn't answer key questions. What happened? Why did it happen? And did people survive that first explosion?
The objectives that we were set are firstly to look for bodies in the drift, and we think that if conditions allow, we should be able to get to a definitive position on that. That is our primary objective.
So is that the primary objective is to find out if there are bodies in the drift?
Yeah. The second and third objectives of the three, the second is in relation to establishing any information which might assist in identifying the cause of the initial explosion, and the third objective is to identify any information that might further mine safety. But in this first stage of work, in the drift, the primary objective is in relation to bodies. We'll see what we find from the point of view of any evidence, but we don't know what we will find.
If you find bodies in the drift, what happens then?
Look, I haven't really no idea. I mean, it's speculative. I think that's a matter that will have to be addressed at the time, should that arise.
But if the key purpose of the robot going in is to look for bodies in the drift, surely there would be some discussion taking place already as you commission the robot, as you spend money on the robot, as you plan this exercise, about what would happen if you find those bodies.
No, well, our brief is to undertake the exploration, and what happens beyond that is outside of our brief.
Are you going to the people who gave you the brief and raising this issue?
Well, I think, why don't we wait and see what is found, John, as to whether it is an issue or not?
Because then that would prolong the process even further, wouldn't it? I mean, if I'm asking you this question now, what do you do if you find the bodies? Wouldn't you be asking the same question of the people who give you the brief?
Well, we haven't. We've been given a job, a task to do, and that is what we will undertake. And, we're not an investigator. We weren't responsible for the explosion that occurred. We're not a regulator. We're an operator, and we've been asked to undertake some particular jobs, and that is what we're doing. We're not funding it. We're not setting that scope. The government has done that for us.
Would you rather someone else was doing this work?
Look, that's an academic question. It falls to us as we are the operator at the site.
Tony King, the CEO of Solid Energy, talking to us earlier this afternoon.